Hello and welcome to the 26th episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. This week's episode is Miss Julie. She was born in France and she is a music industry veteran, especially in the live event promotion and production side of the industry. She started with RDH's promoter. She then moved to London and did festival production for Domino Records when the Arctic Monkeys and Franz Ferdinand released their first album. She then toured with Franz Ferdinand, The Strokes, and shortly after moved to New York City to work for Julian Casablancas' label, which is what originally brought her to the United States. And then she rejoined the touring circuit by touring with John Legend. Miss Julie is an all-around multi-talent. She is so good, she's so genuine, and she shares so much information on what the music industry is like for women. She shares on some of the good and bad experiences she's had. She shares some information on what the music industry was like in France or the UK versus the United States. And she even talks about how you can continue to stay relevant and continually updating yourself and networking with other industry professionals to keep going in the music industry. So I will let Miss Julie tell her story. Thanks again for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoy my conversation, my oh my, with Miss Julie.
Hey, so I'm Julie. I live in New York, but I'm French, as you can tell. And I started in music about 20 years ago, I would say. I started in France. I did an internship with a company that had like that was a promoter's, actually. It was Radiohead's promoter, and it was a very, very small company run by this lady called Hilde Carr, and she had a lady assistant too. And I was looking into, I was doing studies that had nothing to do with music, but my passion was music, and I decided to intern with them, and they offered me a job, but I didn't take it, but that's how I started. And then I didn't take it because I wanted to move to London, and then I started. It was a little bit of a struggle the first year because I was studying still, but I ended up just not going to school a lot, I guess, and went out every night to a show. I was going to about 5 shows a week, probably. And yeah, that because it was my passion, that's what I wanted to do. And then I got various jobs in London. I did some street marketing. I did some festival production work. I worked with my friend who was a manager of a punk band manager. I did distribution for him and press. For a little bit too, and then I did all those jobs like for various amount of time, sometimes all at the same time, and then I finally worked for Domino Records. Oh, sorry. Hold on, I'm gonna turn that off. If I can. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
I don't even know how to turn that off. It's not turning off. Okay. And yeah, so I've worked at Domino Records for 5 years, and I don't know where you want me to stop, but yeah, just like one thing led to another. From Domino Records, I left, and my bands were really supportive, and one of them was Franz Ferdinand. And they offered me a job pretty much straight away as a touring assistant. And then that's when I started touring. Then I met my tour manager, who I got on super well with, and he left to tour with Julian Casablancas. And when the Strokes needed a tour assistant, they asked me to do it. And oh my God, this is so annoying. I don't know how to stop this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to take some time to do this because this is gonna keep going. I don't really know. Do you know how to stop the iMessage from doing that? Because it's like pretty annoying.
There should be a button on the left-hand side, like you turn the switch. That usually turns the ringer off in the top left.
On my computer?
No. Oh, is it on your computer?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah.
I've got a new computer, so I don't usually turn that shit on, and it's really annoying.
Let's see here.
Options. Nope.
If you go to up in the top left where you say the Apple, click that.
Yeah.
And it's
System preferences. Yeah, let's have a look at that. Sorry, sound.
And then notification.
Sorry.
And then you should be able to turn...
it's not on there. Okay, hold on.
Under the notifications, just click...
Well, in the sound one? Oh, then no notification. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. And then scroll down and find iMessage. Or messages.
Yeah. Here you go.
And
here it is.
Click that and then just turn off the play sound.
Play sound. Yeah, I've just done it. Sorry. Yeah, it's fine. Here you go. That shouldn't do that anymore. All right. Cool. Sorry about that.
No, that's right.
All right. So, So I worked... I worked for Franz Ferdinand, met my tour manager, was awesome. And then he went to work on for Julian Casablancas. And the Strokes needed a tour assistant. So I started touring with them. I was also doing some promoting, like in London. I was kind of promoting my own club night. And then I was working for a company called Eat Your Own Ears, who are a promoter, an independent promoter. It's kind of like the equivalent of Barry Presents, but in London. So I used to rep shows for them. And then I got offered a job by Julian to run his label in New York, and I moved here. And that lasted for about 2.5 years, and then I went back to touring. And ever since, I've toured with Banks, John Legend, The Strokes, obviously, again. And now I'm actually full circle, and I'm back with Franz Ferdinand, and I'm production managing. Wow. Congrats on all of your success. It sounds like you've had quite a ride there. Yeah, it was quite the ride. Yeah, you said that you're from France, correct? When did you move to the United States, and kind of what drew you over here? So I moved to New York about 7 years ago. Yeah, it's 7 years ago, almost to the day. And I came here for work. I had come to visit the year before. And since I was like a teen, I wanted to try living in New York. Mentioned it to Julian, who I was touring with at the time. And he offered me a job and a visa, obviously, because I need a visa to work here. He offered me a job working at his record label, Cult Records. Basically being... a label manager, so product managing, doing distribution, marketing, promo, like press, anything, production, everything like that, basically, apart from accounts and design, and being his assistant at the same time. Okay, so the Julian Casablancas kind of brought you over here and everything, right? Yeah, Julian Casablancas brought me over here to work with him. That's so awesome. So what's the music industry? What did you notice in the music industry over here versus over in like France and London? Did you ever live in London, or did you just dream of living in London? No, when I was a teen, I also wanted to live in London, and I did London first. So I was in London for 13 years before moving here. I think there are. I mean, it's very similar, but it's harder here, I guess. I guess it's a bigger place, so I don't know how to explain it. It seems like the community is more. There's more of a community feel in London, maybe, possibly. Everybody knows each other. I mean, I guess the industry is pretty small, so in New York, everybody knows each other too, but you kind of have to fence for yourself a little bit more here.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like it's a little bit bigger, and I think you kind of have many more genres here, whereas over in France, there's probably not as many genres of music and options as there are over here.
Yeah, definitely not. Also, in France, I guess, as opposed to London or New York, like in Paris, even though it's the capital, you have bands touring, but, you know, they pop by once a year, twice if you're lucky, but you don't have a variety of shows to go to, or, you know, it's harder for people to tour there, I guess, or like less bands, you know, but like the bands I was into anyway, they were not from there, so I could see maybe them twice a year. You definitely don't have like in New York. In New York, you have like 15 shows that you could go to, even in your one genre that you like, in one night. Whereas in Paris, you just probably have the one show every 2 days or every 3 days, maybe if you're lucky. So, but you do have genres, but also in France, you've got the quota, for example, for the radio stations where they have to have a certain amount of French music playing. So that's what they did to preserve the culture, the French culture.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you have a quota of French music that's being played to avoid having too much American music, for example.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that they did that. Is that just France, or is it? Are there other countries that do that?
I'm not sure, actually. I know. I don't think England is doing that. Definitely France. I'm not sure about other European countries. Possible, but I've never heard of it. I think it's probably just France. we like to save, you know, like French singer-songwriter. Like French singer-songwriting, actually, I guess, is pretty famous, probably because of Serge Gainsbourg. So they kind of like felt very protective of it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you said that you lived in London for 13 years. I can definitely hear your French accent as well as a little bit of the London accent. It's really cool. I can hear like there's like a dabble of there's certain words that you say that I can hear that are definitely have a London accent, and then there's there's some words that you say that are definitely
have a French accent.
Have a French accent, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's confusing.
It can be confusing, but it's really cool to me. I love listening to different languages and dialects and all that stuff. I think that stuff just fascinates me.
Yeah, I mean, I put the accents in the wrong places sometimes, but hey, it's fine. At least I'm like fluent in English. So
you've done touring, you've done production management, you've done kind of a little bit of everything. What is kind of your real passion? Are you really enjoying touring? And when you're touring, what is kind of your favorite thing, or is touring your favorite thing to do, or is that what you want to do in the music industry?
Yeah, I think in the music industry, I find touring is my favorite, apart from performing, obviously, because I also do that. But touring is probably the most exciting to me, you know? It's kind of, I don't like being at a desk, you know, all day. And I like to get things going, you know, organize stuff and keep moving. And so in many ways, you keep moving. Your day is, obviously, you're traveling because you're touring, so you keep moving in that way. But also your day is, there's a routine to the day, so it's the same day every day without being the same day every day. It's never boring. You have to troubleshoot a lot of stuff. So it's familiar, but ever-changing. So that's what I like about it. It's exciting without being... you still have like to do the same task every day, but then you meet different people, you're in a different place, you have different cultures. When you can actually see the place that you're traveling to, because sometimes you only see the production office, or the venue or your hotel room, but that's part of the game, you know. But sometimes it's really nice, you know, you can step out for an hour, and if it's just an hour, or even if it's just at night, you can just enjoy the city. You kind of figure out if you could live there or not, or what people are like there, or how they go out, or how they drink. It's just like, I don't really... Going into an office depresses me, kind of. I like to be on my feet, and I'm super, like, I'm social, so I love meeting different people. And I've made many friends on the road, so from local teams or from, like, different bands crew. So yeah, I like the social aspect of it also.
Yeah, that sounds like me because I'm a very personable person as
well.
Yeah, you like having a chat.
Exactly.
So that's why I do so well on the podcast, because I love meeting other industry professionals, and I think it's so interesting to hear everybody's stories. And some people are from different countries like you are, and it's so interesting to hear the different perspectives as well. So that's really cool. And I think when you sign up to be in the music industry, regardless of whether you're a songwriter, whether you're a touring manager, whether you're an artist manager, I don't think you sign up to be a 9-to-5 office job. This is definitely a job that runs 24/7, and you've always got to be ready to jump on your feet if you're needed.
For sure. And it's like, that's why you have to be passionate about it, because you can't force yourself to just literally be on your feet for sometimes 20 hours a day. That's happened to me, to work a 20-hour day. And that's kind of what you do, you know, but that's normal for you. So it's not like a big deal, or you don't mention it. Like, you're always on call, but that makes it fun, you know?
Yeah.
People need you also. It's like, oh, people need me. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, absolutely. So
when you get kind of bored, or let's say you kind of have kind of a lull moment, what are some things that you do to kind of get back into that groove? Or let's say you're not on tour, you have like a month between the next tour or the next tour date. What are some things that you do in between that time to kind of stay relevant and keep yourself going within the industry?
I mean, I like to go to shows, obviously, and then I've made quite a lot of connections whilst I was working, like everywhere, really, like London or New York. Like, sometimes I have friends coming from London that come and visit. I mean, most of my friends are in the music industry, I guess. So there's always, like, offices, you know, like Beggar's Banquet, I've got an office here. Like Domino, I've got an office here. So there's always people to see. I like to kind of keep the connections going. I go for like a drink, or I go and see a show, or I like to explore new things. Like I said, like I just try and meet musicians. I don't know. I like to like experiment with videos, and like, I don't know, I like trying different stuff, you know. My interests are very wide. But I definitely try and meet new people. My friends always go, oh, you should meet that person. I'm going to hook you up. I was like, okay. And so there's never a dull moment, really. My household also, like a lot of my, pretty much all my roommates are musicians. So that is good. That keeps me in the loop.
Yeah, I feel like this industry is one where you have to continually meet people, you have to continually be networking, or else you can run stagnant.
Yeah, you do. It's also weird. If you're not in the loop, it's very hard to go back into it. In the kind of, in the way that when I did work at record labels, when I did work for Julian, I wasn't on the road anymore. And if you don't keep nurturing those relationships, people forget about you, because it's such a quick-moving industry. It is a quick-moving industry when you think about music, how it's put out these days. even for like singers and artists, it's like next, kind of. It's hard to make an impact. Same with the staff or crew or like people that work in any industry. If you don't keep connecting, there's so many people that want to do your job. It's a pretty competitive industry because it's fun. That you do need to keep nurturing the relationships. Otherwise, people need to see your face and remember you to give you work. So, like I said, when I started working at the record label, I wasn't on the road anymore for probably about 2 years. And then when I came back to touring, it took me a tick to get back into it because, people have got their team together and a tour is 2 years, like a touring cycle is kind of like 2 years. So unless you have someone that kind of gives you a hand and like adds you onto their team, they already have a fully formed, crew, and it's hard to get in there unless it's the end of a cycle. And then it starts from afresh, and then you're like, okay, maybe we're gonna change some people, and then you get a chance. But you have to keep connecting and keep poking at people. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to like get back into it. And I'm guessing it's the other way around. It works the same. I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you worked at the record label and you came back after that 2-year hiatus, what was kind of the hardest thing that you caught yourself like, oh, this is really difficult? What was something that really kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, when I got back into touring, no, I didn't think it was difficult. I just, the fact that I had to get back into it was difficult. But once I was back, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. I guess it was difficult because I was working different positions that I hadn't done before. I actually worked for an artist, and I was her personal assistant. That was pretty tough, but ended up being pretty rewarding, and we're still friends. But it was tougher because I think the music industry is tougher to women, and it was. I mean, I'm not speaking about me. I'm speaking about her. So,
do you see a lot of women on tour? Is it a lot of men? What's that kind of like, or what's your 2 cents about? I'm always curious to hear women in the industry because they're very inspiring to me, and I think the industry needs a lot more of them. So tell us kind of about that side of it. Do you see a lot of negativity? Do you see a lot of positivity?
I think it's balanced. You got good things and bad things. I definitely think there's not enough women. There's a lot of bands that I know that are really trying to get women in, not because, it's the thing to do these days, or because, let's get on the bandwagon, or because it's on the agenda. Because the energy is different when you have women, especially like touring. There's not a lot of women touring. Obviously the women touring have got lesser positions. I'm doing the production manager job right now, and for example, that's a job it's definitely more technical, and that's rarely taken like by a woman. It's I guess you have to be very authoritative, and then you always run into a woman that's bossy is kind of looked at in a different way. So yeah, there's some of that, obviously. Women on tour together is like, it's nice, to have a pal. If you're like 2 women on a tour, then that's amazing, Most of the time it's just one. And it's usually tour assistant or something like that. Sometimes tour manager, I've seen it. It's refreshing when that happens. But yeah, I think it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. But there's still like a lot of dudes,
I celebrated International Women's Day the other day. Was it yesterday? And I tweeted out a big tweet on some of my favorite women in the industry. And I think we need to highlight more people and women that keep this industry going, because and I see it. I know I don't see it firsthand probably like you do, but I know that it happens, that there's prejudice and there's there's discrimination against women, and I completely disagree with all of it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really tough on the road too. It's just like it's the music industry in general is run by men for men, so it's difficult sometimes, but we're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and touring, like I said, is like a lot of guys. Like some of them are grumpy.
Some of them have been doing it for 30 years.
Some
So
of them
they're
have
kind
been
of-
doing it for 30 years and don't want to do it anymore, but that's their job. So, then they kind of would rather not, but that's their money. But then that's like nothing to do with like a woman or a guy thing. But I guess, seeing that the proportion of guys doing it against women, it's like, that makes sense.
So tell us a little bit about a day in the life of you as a production manager, say, or another position that you had a lot of fun doing while you're on tour. What's it like when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed at night?
So you wake up in the morning pretty early, usually you're first one up, and you go to check that. Well, first you need to check that everybody is gonna be eating properly, because that's a big deal. I know it sounds crazy, but it's almost the most important thing is food. Because that's the only thing that makes people it's the one thing that you need to get it right to make people happy, because that's the only constant. They're away from home, they need to eat properly, have some rest. You need to make sure that everybody's happy, which is a lot of caring. And it doesn't matter if you're a production manager, a tour manager, a tour assistant, a backstage coordinator, whatever you call it. You just have to look after your people. So you get up and you make sure that your catering's running for breakfast, and then you have to get everyone usually gets up pretty well. Sometimes you have to get people out of bed, but not that often. And then you go and set the stage. Everybody's on stage doing the job, getting the lights out, like unloading the truck. You have to make sure that everybody knows like what time everything's happening. So in production, mainly you're communicating information and passing information from one party to the other, as in your touring party to the locals and the promoter. So you need to get all this, you make sure that the sound check is going to be on time. Then you need to get your band to the venue to do the sound check. You take care of your band. And then after that, usually there's a little lull after sound check. For me, there's never really a lull. There's always something to do, but definitely technicians, once the sound check is done and they fix the problems, then you've got a couple of hours till doors. And then after that, you just make sure that the show's running, really. You get back your band, and then you make sure that everything's running on time, that people are in the venue. Sometimes it takes a while, you've got lines and you have to delay stage times and like that kind of stuff. And then you have to make sure that everybody gets back either onto the bus or get back to the hotel. Sort out transport for everyone, and then sort out more food. It's just and then you're like, when you go to bed, you're exhausted but satisfied, and then you know that your day is over. You get up probably at about 7 a.m. actually. You get up at 7, start at 8, depending on the show, but at 8 is probably a good guess. And then you finish at probably 2 on average, 2 a.m. Yeah.
Wow. So what's the longest day you've had?
I've had a 21-hour day before.
Oh my God. That's a 21-hour day. That's almost a
24. I may have done 24 before, but yeah, maybe there was a 1 or 2 hours that was just like, actually, once you finish working, it doesn't matter how hard you worked. It doesn't matter how tired you are. you're so like into it that you're wired and you need to like chill and sit down for an hour to wind down. So it doesn't count as work, but you still have to, do it before you go to sleep.
So how I mean, you're on your feet for probably 21 hours. I would be in so much pain. I'd be complaining all the time probably until I got used to it at least. How do you get through a day like that? Like, other than your passion really driving a lot of it, but how do you get through a day like that? Like, is it just the people that you work with? Is it just the job? Is it the music that keeps you going?
Everything, I think. If you have a really good tour, then that means that you have a great tour manager that you get on super well with, and that not only obviously is a professional, but keeps you laughing, and that you actually get you're friends with. You've got a team that works well together, and then sometimes you don't have time to eat yourself. Actually, you make sure they eat, but then sometimes you don't eat, and they bring you stuff. They bring you like a nice tea, or they do little gestures like to compensate for the fact that you take care of them. So a good tour will be your crew takes care of you back, kind of, and that keeps you going. And then if it's an even better tour, then you really, really love the music that your band you're taking care of is playing, and every night you can be on stage and sing along and dance around. And that's happened to me quite a few times with my bands. Like, I find it hard to tour with a band that I'm not loving, or I'm not into the music, or I've had like occasions right now, actually. Well, I've had occasions working, for example, for Franz Ferdinand, and they've been friends of mine for like 15 years. I've known them for so long. But they play a show and it gives me so much energy because all the songs I love. And I remember once we went to Japan about 10 years ago, and I was so jet lagged and I couldn't sleep. We hadn't slept for like a day or more. I can't even remember. And I was so exhausted, I slept standing in a cupboard for 10 minutes. And to make myself feel better. And then I went to the show, and I still jumped up and down. And the bass player said to me, "I can see you dancing in the corner on the side of the stage. It's so refreshing and it's so nice. Please keep doing it." So if you have like a band and a crew that's amazing, and a tour manager, if you've got everything, as in they're caring and they become your friends, then you can do whatever you want. You can just not sleep for 2 hours. It doesn't matter.
Interesting. So I'm assuming you've been on tours where the music just hasn't really been kind of your jam, and you've kind of struggled with kind of getting into it, or on the opposite side, you're just not getting along with one or two of the crewmates or the band members.
And that gets really difficult straight away. When you don't like the music and that's all there is, or you're not like, it's okay, the music's fine, but you're not like really a fan, then you're like, it's a job. It's still fine. It's still good to be on tour. It's still better than being in an office, but it's not as entertaining or satisfying, I guess. When you have like bad crew members you do not get on with, that gets really hard work very quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine like you're just butting heads and you're just disagreeing on everything, and you know what's better and they know what's better.
And then because your work is also your home, you don't have a home at that point, Your home is the bus. Your family is the touring people. And if you don't have the space or something that grounds you, then that gets really difficult. Just for yourself, for your health and your mental health, basically. You need something to ground you. You need support.
So how would an opportunity like that come about? Like, would it be just the artist usually hire you, or do you work for like a production company? Is it is it freelance work? Because, like, for example, if a band that you just weren't a fan of or didn't like their music, and you had to go on tour with them, would that be like freelancing gig? Would you accept it, or is it just a production company where you don't really have a choice? How does something like that happen?
I'm freelance, so the managers offer you jobs. Agents have got sometimes keep details of all the touring crew and that they like that have toured with their bands, and they pass on that list. At the moment, there's a list going around of female-only touring crew, which is good because
Super awesome.
It's awesome, yeah. And then you can add your friend, and stuff, and because we all support each other. And so agents have got this information and managers. So managers contact you. Sometimes you get random emails. It's funny. And then yeah, you just accept it. But you're not part of a production company. Then you're part, obviously, of that band or management company. But it's not like a official legal thing. You're freelance. But I know people that also do events and are part of a production company, like audio crew sometimes are part of like a audio rental company. The techs, are part of that company, and then we call them on the tour by tour basis to work with us. But in general, touring crew is freelance. Yeah, everybody's freelance, and we usually are loyal to the bands that we work with. So you get callbacks and stuff. If you accept dates for one band, you can't go back on your word and stuff, even though it's 6 months away. And then yeah, you can accept other jobs at the same time. Sometimes you can do 2 bands in a year, depending how much you tour. 3 bands.
Interesting. So I have some experience in that realm, but I don't have nearly as much as you do. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing all of that information. You've done the touring. You've toured with Arctic Monkey, or you worked with Franz Ferdinand, the Strokes, and toured with Julian Casablancas, or the Julian Casablancas label, and worked with John Legend. So how did you kind of get out of that and kind of come back to writing music yourself? Have you always been a musician yourself? Have you always wanted to do that?
I've always wanted to do it. I kind of wanted to do it before everything else. But it's funny, life is weird. You kind of feel like I wasn't confident enough, I guess, when I was younger, when I was a teenager. And that's why I was like, you know what? What's going to happen? I'm going to sing. And I don't know, I didn't see how it was going to go or where it was going to go. So I decided to I'm going to work for musicians instead. And I made a point of like, I'm going to work for musicians. That's the thing I want to do. But I never forgot that, I really loved singing. And I used to write lyrics I used to write poetry at the age of 7 and kept on going. And then it turned into lyrics. And then I was in a couple of bands when I was 18, but we didn't like do much. And then I moved to London anyway. So, but I still had that in me. And then towards the time I moved to New York, for some reason, New York kind of woken up something inside me. I saw that, I know it sounds so cliche to say that, but the energy is so different. Even from London. In London, I didn't feel like I could do it. And then I moved to New York, and then all of a sudden I was like, actually, I really want to do this. And it doesn't matter where it's going. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm maybe working with so many artists over the last, 15 years, 20 years, just made me realize that it was just inside me and I needed to do it for myself. And then moving country and turning up in New York, but all the energy is so vibrant. There's so many people that actually also want to make music, and it's competitive, but it's also very motivating. And yeah, I started making demos and writing songs pretty much the minute I came here 7 years ago. Did a couple of demos with my tour manager that I was talking to you about, who actually was that was tour managing Julian and got me actually to New York with Julian because he was general manager of Cut Records. So I started making music with him. I made a couple of demos, and then it went on. I just met different people. I was managing a band. He hooked me up with a producer. We became friends. We made 2 songs, released them, and then I don't know. I just navigated the other side of the industry for myself, which is it's interesting. It's very different.
It's kind of cool because you worked on that side first. You kind of understand the business side and how touring works, and now you're coming back and writing your own music. So if you had to do it yourself, you would have a very good understanding of what you would need to do. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes it's terrible because I know too much, but people have said you have to let it go because I know all the things that you need to do to get somewhere, and then I get wrapped up into it. Sometimes spoils a little bit the enjoyment of actually writing and like doing the basic creative stuff. But it is really an advantage. It is a good thing that I pretty much know how to do everything myself.
And that kind of sets you up for success. So if you do decide to go on your own, in the next year or two, or you even set up a little mini tour, you would know what to do because you've worked with so many artists and bands on such a larger caliber, like John Legend and Franz Ferdinand.
Totally. And I would know the logistics. I just made some stickers with download codes at the back. And I don't need anyone to do that for me. I just went straight to the production company I was using with Cut Records and went, hey, it's me. I'm making music now. Let's do some stickers. And I know how to do that. And I know how to promote, do the marketing for it. I know, I book myself shows. I've booked shows at pianos for next month and stuff. I know how to advance them, all the technical stuff because I've done it before. I literally have done pretty much every step of every bit of the industry. So it's kind of it's funny. And now I'm also working with bands and artists that I used to work with in on the other side, which is also it's fun. It's fun to kind of flip it around.
Yeah. So do you play any instruments?
I play drums and I play a little bit of guitar, but I like to collaborate with producers or other musicians. My forte is singing and writing. So I try to keep to that. I do a little bit of stuff on Ableton, like everyone else, record tracks and make demos on it. I'm not there yet. It takes a while. It's like going back to being a 14-year-old kid in your bedroom and locking yourself for 20 hours and have the patience to work a software. So I like to collaborate with other people, but it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. What kind of music do you like to write?
I like to write dark-ish pop music. I also like a lot of soca, and I like reggaeton, all that stuff. So there's always a beat that reminds you of the Caribbean or South America. I like things that are fun and danceable. So anything, and it doesn't have to be a happy song, but it definitely needs to be somewhat danceable.
Mm-hmm. I think I like writing dark music. I think that's a lot of fun. My dream and one of my goals, one of my life goals of my many goals is to score a horror film.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. I love horror movies. That's so cool. That would be amazing.
I need a little bit more practice, and I would like to collaborate with another film composer on it so I can learn what their techniques are, along the way.
Yeah, and also you can bounce each other ideas, so it's much more interesting to have someone else to work with than working by yourself, because you can go around in circles and
Yeah, and sometimes you can run into those, and I'm sure you've experienced, you run into blockades, and you're like, I don't know where to go from here, I'm stuck.
Yeah, you're facing a wall and you're like, okay, maybe I need someone else to bounce those ideas off and see, oh, okay, hold on. I don't know. It's just I find it more interesting. But then maybe it's our social side again. We just like to be around people and kind of communicate. That may be part of that. But I mean, the horror movie, yeah, that would be cool. Have you seen Suspiria? You like that Tom York soundtrack?
I'd have to re-listen to it. I'm not even sure if I've heard it. To what movie or soundtrack was it?
Suspiria?
Suspiria?
Yeah, it's this horror movie in the ballet school. It's an old movie remake, but everybody raved about it.
I'll have to check it out because I do like Tom York.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites, while he's not directly horror, he's Hans Zimmer.
Oh, yeah.
He's
he can do horror, I'm sure, but
he does I think he's very famous.
He's huge, and he's one of my favorites. I also like Danny Elfman. He's on the score of the Spider-Man movies. John Williams, of course.
Yeah.
There's just so many. And then Johan Johannesson, may he rest in peace. He just passed away last year or 2 years ago.
Right. Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah.
He did the Sicario soundtrack.
Right.
How can everybody kind of keep up with you and follow you as to how you keep going, and whether it be touring, whether it be your own music? How can everybody follow you? I'm
mainly on Instagram because I like it because it's more creative than any other social platform, I guess. I do have, so my personal Instagram is Classic Judy. And my music is Turismo GF World Tour, Turismo Girlfriend World Tour. And then also I have a website. It's called letssoundcheck.com.
Cool. And I will put all of those links in the show notes below, so everybody can click them in and check you out.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Thanks again, Julie. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend and enjoy your dinner tonight.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Miss Julie as much as I did. She is such a genuine person, and I'm so glad that we finally had the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation, because our schedules have both kind of been pretty hectic lately, so it's been very difficult to kind of coordinate this, but I'm so glad that we finally had the time to sit down and have this conversation. I learned so much, and I hope you did as well. A few parting words. Thanks again for listening. I want to invite you to sign up to my mailing list, as it helps me notify you when new episodes like this are live. And I would also invite you to subscribe to my Patreon account, as it greatly helps me kind of grow the show and work with you. And if you are interested in working with me, this is a great way to do so. And if you even have suggestions on what you'd like to do to work with me, please let me know. I also would appreciate a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts, as it greatly helps the show grow, as well as help it be discovered by new listeners. And you can also tell me what you think is great about the show and what could be improved upon. I'm always looking to hear what your feedback is. And lastly, there is a link to the guest request form in the show notes below. So if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for the show, please fill it out and or send it over to your friend. Have them fill it out, and I will definitely reach out to see if they are a good fit for the show. So thank you so much again for tuning into this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Julie, and we will see you next week on When Life Hands You Lemons.